And welcome to Sports on Tap. I'm Rob Troutman. We have Ed, Dick, Sean, Duffy, Josh, Jeffy. Sports on Tap is part of the NEO Sports Insiders Network, presented by RRT Productions, live from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio.
Good to
Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, it's good to have the gang back.
That's right.
Sure.
We are all accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing in its own
Physically.
way.
Mentally is another question.
Yeah, I mean, we don't ever qualify mentally.
But a great Week 8 for a lot of teams out there as they make a push towards the playoffs. And a few weeks left, guys. Is that hard to believe that there's only a few weeks left in high school football?
Sure is. I mean, even from a coaching standpoint, I can't believe it's week 9 right now. I mean, we're getting down to the nitty-gritty here as far as playoff rankings are concerned, and trying to make moves in conferences and whatnot. And it just seems like yesterday it was 2 days going over scrimmages and getting ready to kick off the season. And this has been it's gone by so fast, and this has most certainly helped that too. I mean, doing this every week has been has been awesome. I mean, unfortunately, the regular season only got 2 more weeks left.
That's the weather's starting to change, Sean. And
it was awesome outside, let me tell you.
It is nice. It's nice. It's
nice fall weather.
It's not snowing yet, which is good, which is really good, but you can kind of feel that coming pretty quickly. Like last week I think it was really rainy and, not all that great to be out watching a game, but I think I was talking to somebody on Saturday that they said, well, at least it ain't snowing. And I'm like, yeah, but we're about 4 or 5 degrees away from that, and it becomes a bigger problem when it is snowing. So, I'll take the rain, I'll take the wet weather. But, yeah, this is the best time of year to go watch football on a Friday night.
Although on this last Friday, it was kind of rainy, and, you saw it in some of the games, but you still put up a lot of points, a lot of these teams. Mm-hmm. But, Josh, we haven't heard from Josh Jeffy yet. He's part of the Greater Cleveland Conference. Let's see what happened in the Greater Cleveland Conference in Week 8.
Some very interesting, tight, contested games, I would have to say, this week in the GCC. We'll start off with Menor as they traveled to Strongsville. This was a big game. Strongsville really needed this game. Menor needed this game to stay on top of the GCC. And Menor was down early, 17-7 in the second quarter. Zach, our buddy Zach.
Con!
He had a big 74-yard touchdown run to have the Mustangs go on top of the Cardinals. But Menor really buckled down and started running the ball. Running back Alex Matthews again with a workhorse-like effort of a game, 25 carries, 178 yards rushing, and 3 touchdowns. He's an MVP candidate again, and he helped lead the Menor Cardinals to a 35-28 victory over the Strongsville Mustangs. Menor improves to 6-2 overall, 4-1 in the GCC. Strongsville drops to 4-4, 2-3 in the GCC. Next game that we have on the docket, Solon with a 28-20 victory over Elyria. Elyria drops another game in the GCC. Their record now is 1-4 in the conference, 4-4 overall. Solon is still up on top of the conference with a 6-2 record, 4-1 overall. Solon's Johnny Mooney, MVP candidate, with 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown. He was 15 of 29 for 224 yards passing, and he added 13 rushes for 62 yards. Solon's Darrell Sinclair also added 2 receiving touchdowns and 88 yards. And Elyria, Chris Atkinson, once again, tried his best, but to no avail, 20 rushing attempts, 147 yards, and a touchdown. So, Elyria just doesn't quite seem to have enough to win ball games in the GCC. They're not losing by a lot, but they are losing, and that's the bottom line.
They're the Cleveland Browns of the GCC.
Exactly. They're close. They're just not there. This game took place on Saturday. Medina improved their record to 4-4, 2-3 in the conference with a 28-6 victory over the Shaker Heights Red Raiders. Shaker Heights loses their 5th straight game, drops their conference record to 0-5, 3-5 overall. Medina running back Jimmy Daw had 26 carries for 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. He also added 2 receptions for 39 yards. A good, much-needed victory for the Medina Bees. In my spotlight game, pit Euclid against Brunswick. Euclid came out with a 27-14 victory over the Blue Devils. Euclid improves to 6-2, tied for first place in the GCC with 4-1 record. Brunswick drops to 3-5 overall, 3-2 in the conference. You know, and I put this out on Facebook. Running back Chris Collins had a very big game for the Euclid Panthers, 163 yards on 19 carries, and 2 fourth-quarter touchdown runs of 7 yards and 63 yards. Brunswick did a very good job in the first half trying to maintain. However, in the second half, only as a team had 2 first downs on offense and a total of 48 yards of total offense in that second half. So the defense of Euclid really stepped up the game. For Brunswick, however, Alex Gillespie had 16 carries, another 100-plus yard rushing game for him. But Brunswick just could not do enough in the second half of the game to really try and get a victory, and I'll defer to Ed. He was there Thursday night game. Big game. Brunswick did play well in that first half, just didn't work out for him in the second half.
Well, unfortunately, what we said could not happen as the second half started is exactly what happened. Euclid went right down the field and scored in a minute and 25 seconds and tied the game right up. That was obviously not a good way to come out for the second half, and after that it was back and forth. We as you said, we were not able to sustain anything really on offense, and that was a big issue for us. I mean, the running game wasn't going, the passing game really wasn't there for us too much. Euclid was able to sling the ball however they wanted to. I mean, their quarterback was throwing seeds and throwing dimes. I mean, any throw he wanted to make, he can make. And unfortunately, Brunswick we caught a break with 7 minutes left in the game. Euclid had just busted a huge screen pass for about 60 yards. Our defensive back, Nolan Smirkovsky, ran him down, and we actually forced a fumble on the next play. So we had the ball, 7 minutes left. First play in, run 10 yards, and unfortunately then we fumbled. They scored quickly, and that was about that. And it was a frustrating night because the team did play well. The team gave it their all. Unfortunately, on this night, it just wasn't enough against a very, very good Euclid football team.
And one thing about this game, the formula for the Brunswick past 3 victories that they had was long, sustained drives. I mean, they had drives over 10 plays in each of those victories, multiple times. They just didn't have that, especially in the second half of the game. And for a team like Brunswick and the style of offense that they're running, you need long, sustained drives in order to be successful. But you got to give credit to Euclid. I mean, their coach, Coach Roski, afterwards had a cool video. I put it out on our Twitter page. I retweeted it, and he was fired up. I was ready to go out there and play after listening to him. But, he gave credit to his team that it was very tough to practice for Brunswick because you don't really see the offense. Ed mentioned it last week, trying to catch a team on 3 days practice, 4 days practice, and you got to give credit to Euclid. They came out and they played real hard and was quick to make scores, and that's what ended up winning the game.
And one thing that really shocked me when I looked at that score and listening to the breakdown, listening to the way Ed as the guy, the eyes on the field there, it was shocking to me that it seemed like Brunswick had over these past 3 games figured out a way to kind of make this offense work, make this score some points and win some games. So I thought that would carry into this game, and I really expected Brunswick to come out and continue that at least consistent play. But like you said, any given Friday they either don't play well, or Thursday they either don't play well or they just don't execute, and it was really shocking to me because I was under the impression that over these last 3 games that Brunswick had figured it out as far as offense is concerned, and they were starting to kind of not learn it, but perfect it. And this is a setback definitely for those kids in that program a little bit.
Well, and let's give credit to Euclid's defense too.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're a tough team.
They got some dudes,
and who are quick, athletic, impressive, and they're having a really good season. Menor, on the other hand, they actually trailed most of that game. Like you said, Strongsville was up 17-7, but Menor finally figured out a way to win that game, and they kind of ran away with it a little bit at the end. I didn't think the score was indicative of how close that game was. So. A pretty good week in the Greater Cleveland Conference for some of the teams.
Some definitely some good games, and we're getting to that point now where, For a team like, for instance, Brunswick, who's on the cusp, barely on the outside looking in, they have 2 very tough games coming up, Mentor and Strongsville. So,
8 games.
Every game now definitely counts. So it's going to be fun.
Well, and later in the show, we'll talk about the team rankings and where they stand going into the
Just
playoffs.
doing a little foreshadowing.
That's right.
A tease, if you will.
Dynamite.
A tease. Now let's go to the Southwestern Conference, and in Week 8, it was Amherst who traveled to Avon, and not much on this game that I couldn't find, but I'm going to imagine that Jake Sopko and Garrett Choate had some big games as they beat Amherst 45-3. Amherst drops to 0-8, and Avon improves to 7-1 on the year. So that's
sounds like a business trip to me, Rob.
yeah, exactly. I think it was. But the next game is Olmsted Falls traveling to Avon Lake. And this was a close game, a very physical game. And the first quarter was scoreless through this game until Avon Lake quarterback Alex Beckman would eventually connect with junior Hunter Bateman for a 24-yard touchdown in the back of the end zone to give Avon Lake a 7-0 lead. Then Avon Lake would continue its attack coming out of the half as Bateman would again connect on a 24-yard score this time with junior Carson Toy as the Shoremen were rolling in this game 14-0. And actually, Olmsted Falls went on 22 unanswered points in this game and started with a 5-yard touchdown run by Matt Archewell as he scored to put Olmsted Falls on the board. It was 14-7. Then Noah Caraballo came up with a crucial interception with 9:23 left in the game. He also contributed with a 2-yard touchdown run as he tied the game at 14. And then Spencer Linville, who we've talked about a lot this year, would then run in from 8 yards out, giving Olmsted Falls a 22-14 win, and that was the final score. 22-14, Olmsted Falls wins. They go to 6-2. Avon Lake falls to 3-5 on the year, and the Bulldogs compile for 259 yards of rushing, thanks in part to Caraballo and Linville for the Olmsted Falls Bulldogs. So again, Olmsted Falls 22, Avon Lake 14. Now Midview travels to Lakewood, and you thought this wouldn't be a close game. Well, beforehand, it was kind of close. Midview, Dustin Crump did play in this game. He hit Bolin for a 63-yard touchdown. Midview jumped up 7-0 in the first quarter. Then Midview came right back. Dimitri Redwood runs it in from 4 yards out. It was 14-0. At half, it was 21-0 Midview before Lakewood hits a 45-yard touchdown pass from Jack Wheatrey. It was 21-7 Midview. Then Dustin Crum came back and connected to Damian Mahone for a 34-yard touchdown. The Middies extended their lead 34-14, this in the fourth quarter, and they win 41-14 as Midview now extends their win streak. They are 8-0 on the year. Lakewood falls to 0-8. And, what can you say? Logan Bolin, though, 63-yard touchdown pass. He goes from quarterback to wide receiver again. And Dustin Crum seems like he didn't miss a beat there. Westlake travels to North Ridgeville. Now, this was a very interesting game as the Rangers strike first with a 15-yard touchdown run by Cam Bright. It was 7-0 early in the first quarter. Then Westlake scored on 2 touchdowns back-to-back by Jaquan Hardy on a 20-yard run and a 73-yard screen pass to take a 14-7 lead. Jameer Malone then comes back with a 39-yard touchdown run, making it 21-14 Rangers. It was 21-14 Rangers at half, and that's when Colin Solinger, the quarterback for North Ridgeville, started the third quarter with a 20-yard touchdown run, making it 28-14. But then Jaquan Hardy again runs for 36 yards and a touchdown. It was 28-21. But Cam Bright, with his third touchdown, gave the Rangers the lead 42-35 with 2:37 left in the game. The Rangers win 42-35 in this game as Westlake falls to 1-7 on the year, and North Ridgeville wins again at 6-2, and they have a pretty good record this year. And Jaquan Hardy, though, for Westlake, let's give him credit, 4 touchdowns on the day, and the Westlake team has been struggling a little bit, but, again, he has been playing some great football and been, again, competing and keeping games close. Now, my spotlight game went Berea Mid-Park traveling to North Olmsted, and It started off with Berea Mid-Park's Nick Gassman as he found Brett Swinnerton on the opening drive for an 11-yard Titans touchdown. It was 7-0. Then Berea Mid-Park and Joey Bocci scores from 4 yards out to give the Titans a 14-0 lead early. North Olmsted finally would respond as Josh Huffstetler gets the Eagles on the board with a 32-yard touchdown run as time expired in the first quarter. The kick was good after. It was 14-7 at the end of one. Then Berea Mid-Park comes back as the Titans answer with a 19-yard run by Joey Bocci, and you'll hear his name often as they went up 21-7 in this game in the second quarter. North Olmsted then would answer on a 47-yard pass from Christian Ammons to Ryan Coleman. The Titans led 21-13 in the second quarter. North Olmsted then back-to-back touchdowns. It was Josh Huffstetler 5 yards out for a running touchdown for the Eagles. Ammons then went to Horn for a 2-point conversion. It was tied at 21 in the game. Berea Mid-Park then would answer with a 5-yard running touchdown by Joey Bocci. The kick was good. It's 28-21, and this is with 2:11 remaining in the half. Berea Mid-Park then Gassman to Bocci again for a 17-yard touchdown, and the Titans led 35-21 with 29 seconds remaining in the half, and that's what it would end up at halftime. It was 35-21 at half. The Eagles trailed most of the way, but tied it, like I said, at 21, and it was a really good game. The final score, though, was 56-28. Not a ton of scoring in the second half. You had a few touchdowns, but most of the scoring all in the first half as 210 rushing yards for junior Tyrese Holland of Berea Mid-Park. Quarterback Nick Gassman had 3 touchdowns, and it was the Joey Bocci show, scoring on yards of 19, 20, 9, 17, 5, and 11 in the game, scoring 6 touchdowns, having 10 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble on the night. He is the Michigan State commit for Berea Mid-Park. He's going to play linebacker there, and he'll be a conference MVP candidate.
You think?
I hope so.
He put up.
I believe he would get some
Very
chocolate milk
impressive.
and Sean Duffy turn.
Yes, he
Yeah,
would. Yes, he
Sean.
would. Maybe 2 bottles of chocolate milk. You never know.
But Berea Mid-Park gets to win 56-28 at North Olmsted, and you go up and down. There were really no surprises. I was a little bit surprised Westlake was that close with North Ridgeville, but Demario McCall again had to sit with his hamstring injury, and he's been injured most of this year. I know a lot of the players on North Ridgeville said, we really want him back, but we got to find ways to win, and that was a really fun game to kind of follow, was that North Ridgeville game, because that went back and forth, and Jaquan Hardy, what a season he's been having for that team, just a leader on the team and really putting Westlake on his back and keeping him in a lot of games.
Yeah, definitely a pretty good performance by Jaquan Hardy, and you know what, with McCall being out, that's it's pretty impressive that that North Ridgeville, the team, has kind of said, you know what, we got to step up, we got to perform. Our star player's not there, and even when he's in there, you don't, at least when the couple of games I've seen, it doesn't seem like they're just focusing completely on McCall. Coach Durbin is trying to spread that out, and with the quarterbacks and the other wide receivers and things like that. So it's not just pure running that's helping North Ridgeville win games. They're a balanced attack, which is pretty impressive considering the fact they have just a stud at running back when he's healthy. So I mean, it's pretty impressive to see the balance on offense.
And a good bounce back game because they got handled by Avon. So it's pretty easy just to say, you know what, we got whooped and call it a day, but they come back strong, and Dustin Crum back in the game for Midview, so that was good to see for him to get back out there. And again, overall, just up and down. Really no surprises, though, in the Southwestern Conference. But now let's jump to the Suburban League, and Sean has a big smile on his face for the American Division, and pretty good games there, Sean.
Yes, sir.
I think there might be a shocker in there.
Yes, sir. There actually is, and I'll get to that in a second. But first, we'll start off with Barberton welcoming Kent Roosevelt into their stadium. Barberton took control of this game pretty early. Brandon McCall, the guy's been living on my MVP list for the last 8 weeks, did not disappoint. Brandon McCall had 301 yards rushing, 4 touchdowns for Barberton.
Nice.
Wide receiver Kobe Booker had 2 receiving touchdowns. Guys, Barberton had 594 yards of total offense in this game.
Oh.
Not to be outdone, Roosevelt's Christian Melman had 347 of the 397 total yards for the Roosevelt Rough Riders, and he had 4 touchdowns to complement that. There was a lot of chocolate milk in Barberton on Friday night, guys. I'm not even kidding you. I looked at the stat line of this, and I'm like, I could go 4 MVP lists right here. So, yeah, Barberton ended up taking control of this game. Pretty impressive offensive output. Defensively, Roosevelt came into play. Next game I have on tap is the Highland versus Talmadge. Talmadge came into Highland, and this was a pretty close game up into the second half until Highland was able to ice the game with 2 touchdowns, one coming on an 11-yard fumble return for a touchdown by Joey D'Amico, and a 44-yard touchdown pass from, and again I have to scroll, I apologize because I don't know this offhand, from Tyler Zielinski to Jake Sir Luis to stretch the lead to 21-7 at that point. Talmadge followed up with a late touchdown by Ty Shannon and Craig Dorth for 2 touchdowns, 7. Obviously Talmadge got touchdowns from Ty Shannon and Craig Dorth, both for 7 and 2 yards respectively. Next game on our list here is Warrensville Heights visiting Revere. Not a lot of stats on this game, unfortunately, but we can say that Revere was pretty much dominant throughout this game, never really in doubt. May have been back and forth. Unfortunately, without that, not a lot of information, tough to tell. But like you, Rob, I imagined, Revere was able to pull this one out. They improved to 3-5 overall, which is good for them as they were, running into some tough competition. My spotlight game for last week was Copley at Aurora. And
this was an interesting.
If you've been listening to the podcast, Copley has just been running people over this season. They have pretty much been averaging like 43.2 points a game at a certain point. But Aurora comes into this, and there was a lot of intrigue for this game because their starting quarterback, there's 2 starting running backs were hurt for this game coming in to play Copley. So 3 of their major pieces in the backfield were all injured and on the sidelines. So that required a lot of like we mentioned for North Ridgeville with Amari McCall being out. People had to step up and play the game, and Aurora did just that. We start off early. Copley's first drive had a fumble, which gave Aurora great field position, and then it led to a touchdown run by Bubba Arslanian. And I swear I love that name because you rarely see a guy named Bubba as a running back. Usually Bubba's a center or a guard or a tackle or a defensive
Very
tackle.
true. Props to you, Bubba Klein.
So, yeah, he had a touch. He had got Aurora on the board early. Austin Brenner followed that up with a pass to Ashton Garrett late in the first quarter to tie it up 7-7. In the second quarter, Bubba Arslanian, and again, if I'm pronouncing that name wrong, I apologize. That's a tough name to pronounce. But this guy was all over the field tonight. He had a rushing touchdown in the first quarter. In the second quarter, he had a pick 6 that, again, gave Aurora the 14-7 lead. Following that pick 6, we had an 86-yard kickoff return by Copley's Jeff Thomas, which set up a 1-yard touchdown run by Weston Bridges, last week's MVP, later in the second quarter. And Bridges scored again before halftime to put the Indians up 21-14. And again, he scored with just 18 seconds left in the half. Aurora then came back and tied the game on a 9-yard run by backup quarterback Mac Austin with 3:09 left in the third, thanks to a key block by our boy Arslanian to give him plenty of running room to the outside. So at this point in time, we have a rushing touchdown, an interception for a touchdown, and a key block that led to a touchdown. Anytime Aurora got in the end zone, Arslanian was involved.
Was a part of it.
Was
somehow.
involved at some point. Yeah.
He's only a junior too.
Yeah, I know.
Wow. I wonder if he plays offensive line, defensive line,
I don't
kicker.
know. I don't know what he does, but
he does it all right
apparently
now.
tonight this night he was all over the field. Now this led to two drives for both Copley and Aurora, which led to missed field goals. But unfortunately, Copley was again trying to drive and fumbled the ball on its own 6-yard line. This led to a touchdown run by Parker Blunt on the very next play. Copley was driving late in the game, right around 44 seconds left to go in the fourth quarter to tie it up, but unfortunately an incomplete pass right in front of the end zone, did Copley in and led Aurora to getting a pretty good come-behind victory and, vaulted them to tie for first place with Copley in the Suburban League American Division. So at one point in the year, we thought Copley was going to run away with it, and Aurora, number 16 in the area, decided they were going to have none of it. So right now, Aurora and Copley are the two teams that are fighting for the division championship, and also this gives a lot of points to Aurora because Copley has been beating a lot of good teams in the area. So this is definitely a big win for them. And on top of that, they did it all despite missing all three of their backfield, their starting backfield. So pretty impressive game. And it definitely makes things interesting going into the last 2 weeks of the season. I want to give Chris Vanzo, also from Aurora. He led the team in rushing with 139 yards, and Bubba Arslinian was second, again, with 73 yards rushing. But, obviously they're, both those guys are worthy of the MVP candidates. But again, they had to step up and they had to make a roll. So that was definitely a very good game, a surprising outcome. I personally thought Copley, given their track record, was going to roll through this game as they have for everyone else. They're just having that kind of a season. But as we said, on any given Friday, a team that comes in and just punches you in the mouth, and that's pretty much what happened here. Aurora came to play, and Copley, they made more plays than Copley did at this point. So I'm going to kick it over to Ed, my cohort, my colleague, and see what happened in the National Division.
All right, National Division scores. We're going to start in Stowe. Stowe Monroe Falls took it to win this Cuyahoga Falls early and often, cruising to a 34-0 halftime lead, triggering the running clock and winning by the same score. Jason Gobble, also a mainstay on the MVP board here, had just 9 rushes for 105 yards, but scored 3 touchdowns out of his touches. Quarterback Kyle Van Shreese, extremely efficient. He completed 6 of 8 passing for 171 yards and 2 touchdowns, both of which to wide receiver Logan Lindsay. Stowe remains undefeated. They will travel to Brecksville to take on the Bees, while Cuyahoga Falls will look for their first win at North Royalton. Moving on to Twinsburg. Winless Twinsburg renewed their rivalry of 5-2 Hudson from their days in the Northeast Ohio Conference. The Tigers D played tough in the first half, limiting Hudson to 2 Grant Gagne field goals. However, the floodgates opened in the third quarter as Kevin Callahan and Roman Moreno each rushed for touchdowns, and Gagne added a third field goal in addition to a fumble recovery in the end zone for offensive lineman Greg Robinson, leading to a 29-0 win for Hudson. Callahan rushed for 123 yards on 10 attempts and had a touchdown. For the Tigers, Jared Eaton had 83 yards rushing, while Dylan French had 66 yards receiving. With the win, Hudson improves to 6-2 overall and 4-1 in the conference. They will host Wadsworth next week. Twinsburg will look for his first win, hosting Nordonia next week. Speaking of Nordonia, Nordonia found themselves in a battle with North Royalton at Serpentini Field, but did rally to overtake the Bears 17-14 on a last-second 23-yard field goal by Trey Crockett. Crockett actually connected on 3 field goals for the night, with his other 2 field goals from 34 and 24 yards out. He is going to be an MVP candidate for me this week. The Bears raced to a 14-0 lead behind a Nick Coberly to Dylan Maraska 23-yard touchdown pass and a Jacob Franchik 1-yard touchdown run. Anthony Perrine lately has been just taking residency in the end zone. He did counter with a rushing touchdown and a 2-point conversion, tying the game at 14 and setting the stage for the game-winning kick. Nordonia improves to 5-3 overall, 3-2 in the division, and they will travel to Twinsburg. North Royalton drops to 2-6 overall and 1-4 in the division. They will host Cuyahoga Falls. Our spotlight game of the week. This was a good one, folks. It was the spotlight game featured 1 loss, Brecksville Broadview Heights, and the streaking Wadsworth Grizzlies in a big game in the Suburban League National Division at Wadsworth's Art Wright Memorial Stadium. The Bees going into this game without quarterback Luke Sternad and also Tyler Tupa, setting the stage for Wadsworth to possibly get their 4th victory. However, the Bees had other ideas thanks to backup quarterback Dan Sharilla and running back Josh Underwood. Grizzly running back Alex Jones kicks off the scoring in the first quarter with a 4-yard jaunt into the end zone. Underwood countered with a 12-yard touchdown pass from Dan Sharilla at the end of the first quarter. Sharilla then also connected on his second touchdown pass of the game, a 22-yard strike to Sam Wigloos to give the Bees the lead in the second quarter. Wadsworth had multiple opportunities in the second quarter. There was a 26-yard missed field goal by Connor Mendel. Connor Montgomery threw an interception in the end zone. That left at least 10 points off the board for the Grizzlies in the second period there. Undaunted, Dan Warneman found pay dirt with a 14-yard touchdown pass from Connor Montgomery in the third quarter, but the extra point was blocked, leaving the deficit at 14-13. Wadsworth drove to the Brecksville 18 later in the quarter, but was unable to come away with points thanks to a personal foul penalty. Josh Underwood finished the scoring for the Bees with a 43-yard touchdown run, providing the final score of 21-13 as the Grizzlies could not match the score. Underwood finished with 25 carries, 198 yards, and a touchdown, and also had a receiving touchdown. He is an MVP candidate. Dan Chirilla, he's filling in for Luke Sternad for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, Sternad suffered a knee injury, and he will be out the rest of the year for the Bees. In this game, Chirilla went 12 for 21 passing with 146 yards and 2 touchdowns for the Bees. The 200 running back tandem of Dan Weinerman and Alex Jones had solid games for Wadsworth, as Weinerman ran for 158 yards on 27 carries, had a receiving touchdown, while Jones had 76 yards on 10 carries with a rushing touchdown. With the win, Brecksville moves to 7-1 overall, 4-1 in the division, sets up a pretty big battle next week against undefeated Stowe. Wadsworth falls to 3-5 overall. They are 3-2 in the division, and they have a date with Hudson next week. So, boys, it was. I'll tell you what. The overwhelming theme I'm seeing here is depth.
Yeah,
we saw a big game in Aurora where Aurora's top playmakers were missing, and they were able They found a way to win a game.
Yep.
North Ridgeville, they've been doing it all year with Demario McCall out, find a way to win games. The Brecksville Bees, no different. I mean, they were playing a Wadsworth team that was really starting to click on all cylinders. And for all intents and purposes, their rushing game did not get stopped by the Bees. But the Bees, they found They found Dan Chirilla, the backup, and Josh Underwood. He's been flying under the radar all year with the exploits of Sternad and Tyler Tupou, but he's been quietly putting together a very good season. And this game in particular, you saw what he can bring to the table, stepping up for those two playmakers.
Well, I thought Brecksville did a great job just to get. It was a low-scoring game. They're used to really putting up some points, but
right.
Now that their quarterback Sternad is out the rest of the year, other guys have stepped up. In a Wadsworth team that seemed like they were starting to get a little bit on track, getting a win, I believe, last week, and then trying to come back and continue. They've been playing better football in the second half of the season, but Brecksville's defense really clamped down on Wadsworth's running game and held them offensively to 13 points. I wonder if that extra point, I was interested to see what you're going to say with the score because I thought that mixed extra point could have been pretty important. But, it didn't play a part in the game. But big win for Brecksville as they continue on now. So nice win by them.
Absolutely. And just to your point, with a missed extra point, I mean, you're ready to tie the game. And, that's more of a deflating sense than anything else. It's like you score the touchdown.
Yeah.
Get the point after. It's a tie game. You miss the extra point or it gets blocked, and it just kind of sets you up, and it's a different mindset. Because then you have to. Yeah. Now you're still chasing points and figuring out how you need to get them and what combination of scores you need to get to a comfortable place. So, obviously a very not the best thing in the world to happen there, but Wadsworth had their opportunities. They just weren't able to capitalize on them.
And even though it wasn't a high-scoring game, I think that was still a good spotlight game. It was probably a physical matchup. The rain might have played a part in the low scoring, but either way, big win for Brecksville. Right now, we're going to
we have a static. Right now, we got static.
This is live podcasting at its finest. Right now, we're going to give our MVPs presented by Z's Cream and Bean. Sports on Tap now gives its conference MVPs, presented by Z's Cream and Bean, located at 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio. All right, there's our conference MVPs that we're going to give right now, presented by Z's Cream and Bean. Want to thank them for being a sponsor on the show and having us the first Thursday of every month. Go to 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley for great ice cream. And they have more than ice cream now.
Josh is sweating
He is.
I'm
You
sorry.
need a cigarette after that or what?
God, do you hear him just exhale?
God.
He was nervous as we wanted to hear our sounders, so a little feedback there, and he was trying to do his best. And nice job, Josh.
Well,
Scotch
thanks.
tape and rubber bands,
Yeah.
folks.
That's
That's
right.
That's how we're doing this.
MacGyver would be proud.
The
He
show
sure
behind
would.
the show.
That's right. Well, now let's head to the Greater Cleveland Conference. Josh.
Oh, that's me. Yep.
Yeah, that is you. It's amazing.
Get back up on the horse, Josh.
Let me get the paper
You
ready.
have a player that maybe
That's
stood
the
out in
That's
the Greater Cleveland
handwritten
Conference?
paper.
Actually,
Yeah, exactly.
we'll call that the Declaration of Independence. But at any rate, I got 4 quality candidates. I had Alex Matthews, running back out of Menor. I had Jimmy Dahl, running back out of Medina. Also, Chris Collins, running back out of Euclid. But I went with quarterback for Solon, Johnny Mooney, who's 3 touchdowns, 224 yards passing, and 62 yards rushing. Helped Solon remain tied for the lead in the GCC with a 28-20 victory over Solon. You know, these games are, we keep talking about it, these games are getting ever more important, and in order to have your best players come out and play their game and lead your team to a tight victory, that's exactly what Johnny Mooney did in this one. You can give a good argument for any one of these players, but I thought this was a big game. Illyria's, like we mentioned, they're so close every week, but they just don't have enough to get over the top. So it took a lot for Solon to actually beat Illyria. So I think they did a good job. I'm going to give my MVP to Johnny Mooney, quarterback of the Solon Comets.
Congratulations, Mr. Mooney, on being a conference MVP in the Greater Cleveland Conference.
And now Rob with the Southwestern Conference MVP.
Wow, look at
See?
Duff.
Helping out wherever I can. Mainly because I wasn't here for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was on an airplane. It was terrible.
That's all right. Well, you're here now.
Yeah.
All right, in the Southwestern Conference, I was impressed with the Olmsted Falls rushing game. They compiled 259 yards of rushing thanks to Noel Caraballo and Spencer Linville. They were MVP candidates, as well as Jaquan Hardy. He had 4 touchdowns. I don't have his yardage, but I know he had a lot on the day. And then also 210 rushing yards for junior Tyrese Holland of Berea Mid-Park. He was an MVP candidate along with Joey Bocci. And in the end, it was Joey Bocci of Berea Mid-Park in a Michigan State commit. He had 6 touchdowns on the day, most of them rushing. There was 1 receiving. So he had 5 rushing, 1 receiving. He also played linebacker in the game, 10 tackles, 2 sacks, and a forced fumble on the night. He's the leader on the defensive side, but he also goes back on offense and plays. So my Southwest Conference MVP, presented by Z's Cream and Bean, is Joey Bocci of Berea Mid-Park. Congratulations to Joey. Just a great game, and he continues to be a leader on that team, along with Nick Gassman. He had 3 touchdowns on the day, so both of those leaders are really doing a great job for Berea Mid-Park. So congratulations, Joey Bocci of Berea Mid-Park. Now over to the Suburban League American Division and Sean Duffy's Conference MVP.
Yes, I had 5 candidates.
Jeez.
5 candidates,
I was
not
gonna
5
say
MVPs.
5 MVPs.
5
Holy
candidates
cow.
that really stood out this week. Obviously, coming from the Barberton-Roosevelt game, which I'm dubbing the chocolate milk game. Brandon McCall, 301 yards rushing with 4 touchdowns. Wide receiver Kobe Booker, 2 receiving touchdowns. And Roosevelt quarterback Christian Melman, 347 yards passing and 4 touchdowns. Coming out of the Aurora Copley game, going to give it a shout-out to Aurora's Bubba Arslanian, 79 yards, 1 rushing touchdown, and an interception return for a touchdown. Also, you can make a case he also contributed a really nice block, which led to a third touchdown. And then also Aurora's Chris Vanzo, who accounted for 139 yards rushing, leading Aurora Green Men in rushing that night. But I'm going to go ahead and give week MVP to Bubba Arslanian, the guy. I mean, he accounted. He personally accounted for half of Aurora's points, and you can make a case that he also helped out scoring a third time. He really, as a guy who probably isn't the starting running back there, stepped up when he needed, defensively, offensively. So go ahead and give it to him. Congratulations, Bubba Arslanian. You did a good job. Keep it up.
Got a win, too.
Yeah, got a win. Got a big win in the
over an
conference.
undefeated team.
Exactly. Now, Ed, who do you got coming out of the National?
Out of the National, I have 3 candidates. Number 1, Macedonia Nordonia kicker Trey Crockett. He had 3 field goals on the night, one of which was
You would get you throwing a kicker, and I love it.
Boy.
He's not laughing, fellas. He's taking
not- no,
this
he's
serious.
serious.
Yeah, I'm not laughing. In fact, I could probably include, you know what, just to spite you guys, I'm also going to include Hudson kicker Grant Gagne, sophomore
Okay.
kicker. He
Okay.
also had 3 field goals,
Giving
including
love
a
to the kickers,
43-yarder.
man. Hey,
43?
that's
This
impressive.
that dude's a beast.
But
Last year, as a
Wow.
freshman, he was
Soccer-style kicker.
yeah, very faithful soccer style kicker.
Sorry.
But in those conditions too, that's pretty impressive. I mean, it wasn't exactly a
You really-
great night to kick.
A lot of times
Absolutely.
in high school football, though, you don't hear of the 43-yard field goals too much.
No.
Correct. But Grant Gagne absolutely up there. Trey Crockett did kick a game-winning field goal along with field goals from 34 and 24 yards out. The other 2 candidates, we also have backup quarterback, and he's going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the year for the Brecksville Bees, Dan Sharilla, 12 of 21 passing, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns for the Bees. The MVP this week, however, is running back Josh Underwood from the Brecksville Broadview Heights Bees, 25 carries, 198 yards, and a rushing touchdown, as well as 1 receiving touchdown.
Chocolate milk.
Chocolate milk for Josh Underwood. He's it's going to be them two are going to have to really be on their game next week when they go take on Jason Gobble and Jason Gobble and Kyle Van Treese of Stowe. That's going to be a heck of a matchup, and we'll preview that here later. But Josh Underwood, congratulations. You are the Suburban League National Division MVP for Week 8.
Very nice. Impressive games by every one of our MVPs. And coming up, we'll have Week 9 look-ahead games. There's going to be some great matchups ahead in that Week 9 that we're going to preview and go over. We're also going to go over the Buckeye Bucks as they hosted Firelands, or actually they went to Firelands, and we'll go over that game. And also the Massillon Tigers. Did they win and continue their winning streak? We'll go over some of those games. And we also have an interview coming up, Ed.
Yes, we do. I was fortunate enough to be on the halftime show of the Rittman Indians versus Northwestern football game with one of my good friends and friend to show status, I would think by now, Garrett DeSalvo. Garrick has been nice enough to join us here shortly. We're going to go over the Rittman Indians' big victory over Northwestern, as well as a little bit of Wayne County football, and get his thoughts on what's going on up here.
Nice.
All right, we'll step away, take a short break, and when we come back, we will preview Week 9 and much more. All coming up. Sports on Tap, partnered with NEO Sports Insiders, presented by RRT Productions. We're coming right back. Don't go anywhere.
For the best coverage of Cavs, Indians, and Browns, check out neosportsinsiders.com. neosportsinsiders.com brings you breaking news, opinions, and video from all things related to your favorite Cleveland sports teams. Like us on Facebook and follow at NEO Sports Insiders on Twitter for live updates from all the games. neosportsinsiders.com, bringing you the best in Northeast Ohio sports coverage.
Join Sports on Tap the first Thursday of every month at Z's Cream and Bean, 2706 Boston Road in Hinckley, Ohio, as Sports on Tap talks local Ohio high school sports, Cleveland sports, and national sports topics. It's all happening at Z's Cream and Bean the first Thursday of every month starting at 7:30 p.m. Join us. You're listening to Sports on Tap's Ohio High School football coverage live on Mixlr. Live streaming every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. Remember to check us out on Twitter at SOT Podcast and use the hashtag SOTHSF to post score, stats, and pictures from all your high school football games. Like us on Facebook and listen to all of our archive shows on iTunes, YouTube, and Podomatic. Again, our coverage starts every Monday night at 7:30 p.m. We're Sports on Tap.